also live streaming. Thanks also to Mr. Mateja for ensuring that that live streaming does indeed happen. We'll then proceed and go to item number 3, which is the adoption of the agenda. Noting that there is one item that is for approval. The rest of the items are for noting. Besides the minutes of the meeting, of the previous meeting. Are there any changes, members, that you are suggesting to this agenda? If not, by show of hands, that you support the adoption of this agenda. Thank you, Mr. Kumede.
Chairperson, just one item. Item 9 doesn't open on the board pack. So on the board pack, so I'm not sure whether for other members it did, but I would suggest that if it doesn't, then we can perhaps postpone it to another time.
Chair, the same applies to me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I don't want to overload the special meeting that is on the 16th, but perhaps we can then take it to the special meeting. But it might help to ensure that we just maybe briefed, noting that the agenda is relatively a short agenda, just to be briefed as to what this entails, so that on that day it can be dealt with expeditiously. I can see a hand up, Madam Maseti. Any suggestions from your side?
Yes, Chairperson. From my side, it's actually 2 items. It's item 7 and item 9 that could not open, but I wasn't overly concerned about item 7. In fact, both of them, because item 7 is just an update on the construction licenses in terms of how far the construction is. So I thought, and it's for noting. So I wasn't too concerned. I thought maybe if we get a good introduction from the presenter, then I was going to be fine if the chairperson wanted to proceed with it, even though I didn't see it, because it's a straightforward submission. Same with item number 9, which talks about just the utilization and update on the utilization and third-party access. So I was going to go along with what the chairperson may suggest, how we proceed with them, because both of them are for noting and they just update us on the utilization as well as the status of the licenses or facilities that were approved, how far they are in terms of construction. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, thanks for your input. May I suggest that we proceed this way? We've got item 7 and then there's an updated 7. The item 7 updated it does open. Up to item 7, the original one, is the one that is refusing to open. That we proceed with item 7 in today's meeting, but that we be properly briefed. And then with item 9, I think it would help that we then just get a high-level briefing, and then we will deal with it in the special meeting of the 16th of this month. If members will agree with that by show of hands, and then we may just proceed with our agenda. Thank you, Madam Maseti, Mr. Kumete. Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. We then proceed. I also then accept the adoption of the agenda as such. May we then proceed to item number 6. To item number 4, which is the declaration of interest. As been advised by the Regulatory Support Unit, that we please ensure that the declaration of interest forms are filled and submitted to the Secretariat, Madam Maswanganyi. May we then just ensure that we do exactly that. And members, if there are any, and management as well, if there are any interest to declare verbally in this meeting, by show of hands, please. I take it that there are none. I've got none also from my side to declare. We then proceed to item 5, which is a decision and reasons for decision on the bulk tariff application by Engen Petroleum Limited for its 53 petroleum storage facilities across the country. Madam Twa, in your team.
Thank you, Chairperson. As indicated, this is an application by Engen, and the details on how we end up with 53 storage facilities will be given by Ms. Nkosi together with just a brief, just guiding the members on and assisting them to approve or discuss the application. Thank you, Ms. Nkosi.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mutwa. Good morning, Chair, and good morning, members and colleagues. Apology, I just want to give an apology for a typing error on page 5 of the PPS cover submission, paragraph 11. Dates to read as 22 October 2021 and 9 November 2021, not 2022. The purpose of this submission is to request the PPS members to approve the tariffs applied for by Engen for its 53 petroleum storage facilities for the period 1st January 2022 to 31st December 2022, and approve the decision and reason for decision document attached to as Annex A. This is not Engen's first tariff application. In 2011 tariff period, NERSA approved tariffs for 65 licensed petroleum storage facilities, and out of that, the background of why we arrived, like Engen now is applying for 53 storage facilities, is given in the PPS cover submission. From paragraph 19 to 29 provides the assessment of tariff application. On page 16, table 5 shows a comparison of tariffs calculated by Engen and NERSA. On page 20, appendix 1, table 1 provides a summary comments from JKM Petroleum Consulting with management's responses. In conclusion, it is recommended that the PPS members approve the tariffs applied for by Engen for its 53 petroleum storage facilities for the period of 1 January 2022 to 31st December 2022, and the RFD attached as Annex A. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Nkosi. We then proceed to get comments, questions, and guidance from the members. By show of hand, members, if there are any. Madam Maseti, can see your hand, as well as Mr. Sbanda. If you may just come forth, Madam Maseti.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, let me start off with the period of this application for the tariffs. I see in the somewhere in the document it shows that the period was 1st January 2021 until December 2022, meaning that it was a 2-year period. However, what we are required to approve is for 1 year, starting from January. I wanted to find out if then there was a change in the application by the applicant, especially because our mandate when it comes to the storage facilities is not to set but to approve. I just wanted to check if there was any specific change made by the applicant insofar as the period is concerned, or are we establishing the period ourselves, or it could have just indicated that they have applied from January 2021. However, the period, the tariff that we want the regulator to approve will be effective from January 2022 until December 2022. Will that be the case, Chairperson, or the date was changed? And then the second thing that I'm concerned about, Chairperson, is the fact that this application has taken long, and I see there is an explanation for that. However, it will, despite that, there are two things that arise from that. Firstly is the fact that NERSA's resources are going to be, again, strained by a new application that we may expect in 5 months or 6 months' time, because the license conditions are very clear that they need to apply before the existing tariff expires, and it must be 3 months before the tariff expires, the approved tariff expires. So it means in a matter of just 5 to 6 months, again for the 53 facilities, NERSA must again sit and work on this and analyze. So if one looks at those issues that will impact on the resources and the administrative abilities of the regulator to deal with this again, couldn't they have looked at the, extend the period or something like that, Chairperson? But again, Chairperson, I was wondering what was the reason for this applicant to not be able to provide an adequate application or application that is materially complete, if this is not the first time that they apply for the tariffs. And one is tempted to ask this very same question because it has taken the regulator 1 year, 3 months just to evaluate and look into this application. And perhaps we could improve in the future by rejecting applications that are materially incomplete so that we don't clog our system, we throw it back to the applicant to provide an adequate application before NERSA so that we don't keep these applications for this long in our system. And then the third thing is that Chairperson, and then I think the information with regards to the tariff itself, Chairperson, I think I am covered. I don't have any questions. I've looked at the calculations. I don't have further questions to ask with regards to that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Maseti. Mr. Sibanda.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you very much to the team. I'm happy with the recommendations. Just one or two issues, starting with the number of facilities. So we are told that there were 65 facilities, and then 10 licenses were revoked, leaving about 55, I suppose. But this application deals with 53, and there is no explanation, or at least I couldn't see an explanation for the other two, if my calculation is correct, Chair. From the initial 65, 10 having been revoked, leaving 55, and then we're dealing with 53 today. And then the next issue for me is it's just a concern that it took about 10 years for this licensee to apply for a tariff, the previous one having been approved in 2011. And it is basically my concern is with respect to, and I suppose perhaps they apply due to our compliance and enforcement efforts. But my real concern is with respect to the clawback. If for whatever reason there was under recovery in the revenues, how are we going to deal with the clawback? Seeing that this applicant took so long to apply for a successive tariff. And then regarding the period of the application, I think Ms. Maseti has touched on that, but my issue was our response to the stakeholder who raised a concern that this application was supposed to be from the 1st of Jan 2021, whereas in terms of the law, they are supposed to apply at least 6 months before the effective date of the tariff. And our response doesn't quite address that concern as far as I could read it. And I would suggest that perhaps in the RFD, we actually deal with that issue, unless the intention is to have that response to the stakeholder as an appendix to the RFD. But I'll propose that we deal specifically with that issue of applying 6 months before the effective date of the tariff. Yeah, I think that's it from my side, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sibanda. Mr. Kumete.
Chairperson, firstly, just to indicate my support for the recommendation. But there are a couple of questions. The first one being, are there any third parties that are using these tanks? I guess I'm asking whether are there any third parties that Engen is allowed to any of these 53 tanks who would be paying these tariffs, or is it just an exercise so that in the event that there are any third parties? Secondly, it was a comment that, for me, I was intrigued, I was impressed by the fact that the majority of these tariffs are actually below or similar to the storage tariff that is in the petroleum, which is in the petroleum pricing framework. And I think that for me is a good indication. I think that at least for the third parties that may be using those tanks, they have an ability to actually collect money from the users and actually service this. But it then raised the question around the issues, the tariffs that are related to the airport terminals. It seemed to me that, and it's a question, Chair, that says, is it not, they seem to be way out of kilter. 1 rand, 123 cents, and other view. Is this not a way of this particular licensee trying to keep out competition, especially in some of those depots? I'm not sure who else, for instance, in Uppington, for instance, who else has got storage there? Is it not their way of keeping out competition? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, members. Madam Twine, your team, you may respond.
Thank you, Chair. I will address some of the questions and then I'll let the team also attend to other questions. I'd like to start by saying that we've had challenges with the number of licensees with old tariff, and we had started a project of trying to get everyone to update their tariff, especially anything that's more than 5 years. So we have been sending letters reminding them that they need to update their tariff. So this is one of the outcomes of those where we were requesting that they update. So this tariff application started way before 2021. I think it was actually even in 2020, we had the number of discussion with Engen. At some point, they had to withdraw their application because it was not adequate. And I think there is a process that we follow to shorten the process for those applicants who are not responsive and have not given us adequate information to process. I think it's Form C of incomplete application, where we then stop the process so that the applicant can then resubmit with a new application. I think maybe with this specific licensees that they were very responsive and they just needed assistance. It's just that the number of facilities was just a huge at once, and hence we were working with them through the process. And also to note that on the table, table number is table 2 on the cover submission. It does indicate that a revised application was then submitted in September because initially they wanted 2 years, which was also just to try and make sure that we don't deal with all these facilities every year. However, because of the information not being sufficient to process through, then they had to submit a revised application end of September last year, which is what is now in front of the members. In terms of the facilities, sort of that we did not clarify that, but indeed there are 53 that we are putting for approval. The other 2 which are missing are joint ventures, and those will follow a different process for the application and their approval, because they will use an independent operator to then submit that application. Maybe I'll allow also Agnes and Mr. Gabas to...
Just a second, Madam Twa. In other words, you are saying that the approval being from the 1st of January to end of December 2022 is mainly because of the amended or the revised application. Are you saying that this is for my first, just to be clear? And 2, that the other 2, if you can just make sure that in the write-up is such that it makes that one very, very clear, so that when one adds, the arithmetic does add up. If you can just update the submission accordingly and the RFD accordingly, just to make it very, very clear. You may then deal with number 1.
Yes, Chair, we will then deal with the clarification in terms of the write-up. May I allow Ms. Gosi to then just confirm the revised application and what it entailed? Thank you.
Madam Gosi.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes, engine. Yes, we had a couple of challenges. So the tariff application that was resubmitted on the 1st of September, it was complete, it was adequate. So they did add and they ratified the year that they're applying for. They were applying for 1st January 2022 to December 2022. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. You may then proceed with the other questions. Are there any third parties, or do we just do it just in case there is a third party that wants to use the facility?
Okay. In that question, I'll ask Martin to attend to that.
Chair, if I may proceed, I'm a bit put on the spot here, but I think the following comments. I think we have to then get a detailed list of the 53 facilities, but of those 53, almost a large portion of that, I think there's 23 in total, is what they call SDCOs, which is basically they own the assets, but there's a other operator that actually runs it. But in terms of what I recall from the previous year, third parties, there was at these facilities were really limited, but I think we'll need to come back with the proper facts. But when it gets to the airport facilities, if I may address Mr. Gumedi's question there, I think the challenging part about that, Mr. Gumedi, through you, Chair, is that storage at airports are regulated also by IATA and JIC standards, which is global standards, and therefore fuel quality needs to be controlled. It goes into every area. So third-party access at airport facilities is also governed by other regulatory standards, if I put that. So it has been a challenge that even at OR Tambo and others, and what the airports company has done from their side is as a SOE in terms of access and promoting HTSAs, they then force the users to give an allocation to other new entrants. But the control of the product and the fuel quality is critical. So I'm not sure if I can't comment on whether the 150 is high or low, but just generally at airports, there's no other facilities, was your other question, at the airports. Each airport has got one facility at the national or the national airports, if you can put it that way, and the regional airports. There may be a second supplier of F-gas, but all the facilities licensed by NERSA, there's basically one facility per airport. And then the other complication is the IATA and JIC international standards. I'm not sure if I've answered the questions, Chair.
Okay, I think is what is going to help here is that the issue that Mr. Kumete actually touched on, talk to the relevance of the tariff that we would approve or set. And therefore, I think in this setting, you can't necessarily give a holistic response because of the information that we might be having at hand. I understand the comment in terms of these tariffs being closer to what is or is in the fuel pricing mechanism. I think these airport terminal tanks, we should be able to include them as part of the tariff monitoring, where we look at the tariff that we have approved or set vis-a-vis the tariff actually charged, just to get a feed, and then deal with the other matters that are related thereto, including the whole issue of competition, the whole issue of the participants in those facilities. And then when it comes to the issue that was raised by Mr. Sibanda around response to JKM, please just ensure that you rephrase that and you are able to talk to the issue of a revised application being in September and all of these things that pertain to that, notwithstanding also to incorporate the comments that are on the meeting chat by Madam Maseti. I think it's going to be important just to respond holistically to JKM. And then the issue that was raised around the possibility of even the possibility of rejecting an application, and then it becomes a challenge with the administrative workload. I would say to the team, start now to engage Engen with the view of looking at a multi-year tariff applications, like if you can have a 3-year tariff approved, that would help. And then we make follow-ups in terms of enforcement. As we have said, I mean, even in other platforms, that we've tried to tighten up monitoring and comply and enforcement of compliance. This is one outcome thereof. And with all the developments that have taken around the refinery, there've been a lot of also engagement with Engen for a different reason, which in any event also had some impact in terms of them being able to do things speedily as compared to what we would have loved to see happening. With that, I'm saying then it's important that this forward-looking perspective be incorporated in terms of the submission and as well as in the RFD, not forgetting the holistic response to JKM, as well as the monitoring of tariffs, the ones approved vis-a-vis the ones that have been that are actually being charged. With that, members, if you are fine with with the responses, we may then proceed to the recommendation. But I see your hand is up, Madam Massetti. You may weigh in.
Yes, Chair. It's a quick one, Chairperson, just to make sure that we are on the same page here. You know, there's remember the applications from January 2022, so that we are clear on the period. January 2021 until December 2022 for the 2-year period. However, there's a revised application which was submitted in September, meaning that that cannot be now January 2021 because there's a new application essentially. So it will mean that even today we are only approving for 1 year. Now, and also if you look at the tables, Chairperson, they don't talk to 2021. Table 6, which is in the decision, it only captures 2022. And I think also table 3 on the calculations of the allowable revenue, you will see that they only speak to 2022. However, in the way that we capture the decision, as you get to the recommendations now, Chair, you will see that the team says it's a tariff from January 2021 to December 2022, meaning that it is for then 2 years. Yet the tables are not supporting that. If you could just pay attention to that particular inconsistency, Chairperson, and also the fact that we might not be in a position to now approve any tariff as from January 2021 because we didn't have that information. It was revised and it's after the fact. So we are approving going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think it's going to be important to make sure that team, you if there's any typo around 2021, you correct that, because if I look at 37.3, it says that the PPS is required to approve it is recommended that the PPS approves the tariffs applied for by Engen for its 53 storage facilities for the period 1 January 2022 to 31st December 2022, as shown in the table that is provided. I think it's going to be important that throughout the document, you ensure that consistency is maintained, and you ensure that you indicate very clearly that the revised application then talks to a 1 year. But as I said earlier on, in future, let's start to engage Engen right away to ensure that we can have multi-year tariff applications, so that we reduce the administrative burden both on their side as well as on our side. Having said all of that, members, there's a recommendation which states that it is recommended that the PPS approve the decision and reasons for decision document attached here to as Annexure A, notes the analysis of the trial run of the tariff methodology version 4.1 attached here to as Annexure B, and approves the tariff applied for by Engen for its 53 petroleum storage facilities for the period 1 January 2022 to 31 December 2022, as shown in table 6 below that is provided to us. By show of hands, members, if you support that recommendation. Thank you, Madam Massetti. Thank you, Mr. Sbanda, Mr. Kumete. I also do support the recommendation as read out earlier on. Thank you. This then concludes 5. We then move to item 6, which talks to the inland security of supply.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members, management, and colleagues. The submission is to request the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee to note the second submission for the 2021-2022 financial year, reporting on the inland security of supply project, where we look at the capability of the pipeline, as well as the pipeline connected storage facilities in meeting the inland demand. The first report served at the PPS meeting of 9 September 2021 And then comments that were received at that meeting are addressed in table S1 from page 4 to page 5. What is important to note that since the submission was compiled, two major events have taken place. One is the Supref refinery shutdown, because in the submission itself, we do talk about the risk in terms of heavily reliance on the imported petroleum product. But the issue of changing landscape, as per paragraph 5.1 on page 3, it's a separate project. But the second event, what is currently happening globally. Hence, we have seen a spike, a rise in crude oil price. Whatever that is happening, it is not only affecting one or two countries, but other countries might be impacted. But what we normally do in terms of this, because we rely as well in terms of what is projected based on the available information at that stage. But when we have another submission, what we'll do as on page 13 and page 21, when we indicate with the previous submission, this was what was projected, and that was the situation. And then we'll be using the latest available data in terms of comparing the two periods, the previous and the current at that stage. But based on the analysis that have been done, it clearly shows that both the pipeline and the storage, pipeline connected storage facilities are capable of meeting the inland demand. With that, I would like to recommend that the PPS note the report attached here to as Annexure A on the inland security of supply. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, guidance members? Are you happy to note? Mr. Kumede?
Chairperson, I'm happy to note first, but I wanted to find out what is our role really in the security of supply. I mean, I understood at the time when the issue was about whether we've got enough capacity to be able to transport petroleum products from the coast, in the event that the inland refineries were actually out of commission, and hence the size of the NPP. However, I'm not too sure whether our role is clearly defined, and for this chair, it's not criticism, but it's in terms of the advocacy campaign. I think we must find a role and scope. We might find something for NASA here, because somebody needs to actually monitor on a day-to-day basis. I guess the question would be, is this perhaps something that is done by the department, and therefore there should not really be, the expectation is that NASA's responsibility only starts and ends with pipelines, but we also have the storage facilities that we are responsible for. Therefore, I'm not very clear, Chair, what our role is in respect of security of supply, and I'm therefore asking perhaps that there may be a need to actually clarify that. That is number one. Number two, with the view of this rising MPP tariffs, which might, I know we've discussed this and we've tried to contain it, but which might at some point be, the tariffs might be in the same region, especially if you're going to consider pipeline, then storage, then onward, and then secondary distribution as a total tariff as compared to just road road tariff. I guess the question it raises for me is that going forward with the increasing tariff in terms of the pipeline, how do we see again our role here? Because that, you know, when you direct bridge like that, first you then bypass facilities like storage facilities. So what does it mean in terms of our own responsibility in this area going forward? But then the last one, Chair, is just a question. I saw on in the table there that let me just find the table. Sorry, I should have noted this. There's a table which talks to which compares volumes that were transported. Table 4. I was wondering on the first line, the OR Tambo volumes. How do we explain that? We had a drop in rail. We actually had a drop in the use of rail. I guess it applies. Sorry, no. It's clear. It's a stupid question. Sorry.
Okay. No, thanks a lot, Mr. Kumete. I will then proceed, Mr. Sibanda.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I'm happy to note, and I'm glad that Dr. Polo actually raised the question of the geopolitical events that are impacting on the price of fuel. But I was wondering, to what extent do we get to analyze the projections that we receive from the Bureau of Economic Research? Because then it will be important to contextualize, for instance, figure 2 on page 14, by talking to the geopolitical events that have arisen recently and how these are likely to impact the sales volumes going forward, so that it's quite clear. And as much as he has raised it verbally, but I think it will be important to then incorporate that in the report and also indicate how that is likely to change that aspect. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. I think from my side, I just want to raise an issue. If Dr. Polo may just reflect on it, because I think also it's very much linked to what Mr. Kumete touched on. I was because I had a look at this in terms of the security of supply situation inland. That we need to appreciate the shifts in the landscape, in the sense that in the past, yes, it was a challenge to say, do we have adequate capacity to take a product from the coast to the inland regions, and therefore one will understand the concern around always checking that adequate. But with the NMPP now, which is now the MPP, operating in its multi-product mode, I think the tracking security of supply, the adequacy of the infrastructure, it's mainly from a point of view of saying we check in terms of increases in demand to the extent that there is a need to install additional pump stations, just to be able to have that foresight and see if in terms of operation everything is working well, because the infrastructure, as the normal infrastructure, it's adequate. There could be challenges on the infrastructure itself, like we saw with the the storage facilities operating at the brim because of the lockdown in 2020. But other than that, it's now the challenge is more around the utilization of the pipeline. Hence, the issue that we need to look at it in comparison with the road and rail, as well as now look at the changes in the landscape, particularly the reliance or over-reliance on imports, what that means, which then will include also the issues that Mr. Sibanda raised around the geopolitical dynamics and what their impacts are on our national situation, which then will include the issue of the analysis of information that will come from sources or bodies such as the Bureau for Economic Research. So that is how I look at it and how I envisage that this is how we need to deal with this thing going forward. Not so much on the adequacy as such in terms of the hardware, but around the issues of ensuring that there is security of supply in the manner that I've already provided. That is how I think we need to posture ourselves in this regard. Madam Asset.
Thank you, Chairperson. You partly covered me on this issue, and I put it on the chart as well, as to the scope of our assessment in this report. So the scope and approach and the approach, so that we don't only confine our assessment to the infrastructure, the capacity that is there in terms of the infrastructure, because you may well have the infrastructure, license it and ensure that it is there. However, the infrastructure is meant to ensure that there will be product that is transported and stored, so that it then meets the demand and also deal with issues of supply security. So I wanted to find out then, in terms of the scope of this report or assessment, to what extent do we conduct an analysis that looks at the commodity itself, the product itself that must be transported and stored in the infrastructure that is available. So if the infrastructure is available, do we then have the product? Because that's what is important. So it means the two must go hand in hand, rather than just focus on the capacity in terms of pipeline and the storage facilities that are there, but do we have the product? And to what extent other factors may impact on not accessing that product, even tariffs themselves, to what extent may they affect that, and other geopolitical factors, and as well as any challenges of import coming into the country, or even the productive capacity, because I think that's a key thing that we should even be analyzing, the productive capacity of the industry in having sufficient product that must meet the demand. So that's the kind of analysis that must also go into this report. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Asset. I think maybe just to borrow from what everyone has said in this regard, and I think it's important that Dr. Xolo, in the future reports, you provide the scope and the approach. Which scope then will deal with the issues that we have already raised around just clarifying our responsibility in terms of the security of supply, our role there, what actually we'll be looking at, talking to the issue of the adequacy of the hardware, which is the infrastructure, but then you need to look at what will it take actually to get the product into the inland market, noting the challenges around the productive capacity, which is the refinery landscape and our over reliance on imports, looking at the availability of product, as to what extent then are the constraints and how those constraints need to be managed or are being managed going forward. And then you look at the pipeline vis-a-vis other modes of transport, and how best to then serve the inland market in a manner that is effective and efficient for the economy. And you'll have to then also have a view around, when you're talking of the hardware, around when you envisage the issues of pump stations, because they talk to additional capex, if any. And it will then come naturally to then look at, analyze data that is coming from the various data sources, particularly the Bureau for Economic Research, as well as other sources, that other authorities, including the department. So I think, by and large, that is what you need to really talk to, what the scope is and the approach, and then you can then have a document that then is aligned to that. Because I do want you to respond broadly, but I see this as more of the enhancement in terms of future reports, because you definitely would have done this, not necessarily having the kind of scope and approach that we are now alluding to. So you may comment or respond, Dr. Xolo.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe let me start with the last comment in terms of when you look at the product, because we've got a number of projects. For instance, on the 16th of Feb, there was a project on the review of a methodology to determine uncommitted capacity. All of these projects are interlinked. Now is this inland security of supply, which also is not just looking at the pipeline, but also considering the pipeline connected storage facilities. The reason why is because that could be a bottleneck in terms of the supply, hence it is also affected. But there is the third project, which is item 9, which members could not open. But that one now zoom into the infrastructure, where you don't just look in totality, but you also look at it per product. It's just that we've got various projects that are interlinked. It's just that they have so many sub-projects within them. Hence, they have to be separated like we have done. But that is covered there. As far as the geopolitics is concerned, I mentioned that when I started that there were major events that took place after we had compiled the report. And even the data that we received had not foreseen that taking place. But when we prepare the second, another submission for 2022-2023, we'll sort of touch base on that. And then we sort of do the comparison in terms of what I'm presenting today, in terms of where are the differences. But as far as NESA's role as security of supply, I agree. It does not end up in terms of this project. For instance, there are other forums which my colleagues attend, where various stakeholders discussing the issue of...
Dr. Xolo, sorry that you interject. I think what you are talking to is actually that this, we're not saying all these other initiatives must necessarily be brought in and reported in full here. Reference must be made to those as you present when we are looking at the scope and approach going forward, right? Which also the social, the geopolitical situation are part and parcel of what actually happens in this industry in terms of the constraints, in terms of the volatilities in the market that have got an impact in terms of getting product from point A to point B. So it's part of the constraints that you would be talking about. I don't want us maybe to take a lot of our time just because we want to zoom into each and every one. I was trying to make this thing very clear to you that in terms of how we have been looking at it now, we're just putting a little bit of a difference. We're appreciating the work that has been done, but we're saying you need just to then just change a bit in terms of the scope, noting the landscape changes that needs that require of us to look at this whole thing of inlet security of supply differently. That is all.
No, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, are you happy to note this report on the inlet security of supply by show of hands? Thank you, Mr. Masetti, Mr. Kumete, and Mr. Sbanda. I'm also happy to note. May we then proceed to the biannual report on the monitoring and enforcement of compliance with operation license conditions. Mr. Lukele?
Chairperson is the operation, so it will be Mr. Mapodi. However, we have had a request from our intern, Mr. Tabedi Mukalaka, to kindly present on this one. He has worked on the team with in preparation of the submission, and he would like to assist in terms of introduction. Thank you.
Cover the key issues and just a little bit dwell on them, noting that some members had challenges in terms of opening the document. We're on item 7 updated. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, members and colleagues. As introduced, the purpose of this submission is to request the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee, the PPS, to note the biannual report for the 2021-2022 financial year on the level of compliance by licensees with the conditions of their operation licenses. Please note that this is the second biannual report on the aforementioned matter for the 2021-2022 financial year, with the first report noted by the PPS on 09 September 2021. This report covers the following regulatory reporting requirement sections: the average actual storage facility utilization, which is on page 9 of the report, the allocation mechanisms and third-party access, which is on page 13 of the report, the status mechanisms to promote historical disadvantaged South Africans, HDSA, which is on page 14 of the report, and furthermore, site visits conducted during the reporting period, which is on page 21 of the report, and conclusions covering the aforementioned sections, which is also on page 21 of the report. Under the average actual storage facility utilization, for the reporting period 1 July 2021 to 31 December 2021, for the above bulk facilities that were due to report on their monthly utilization as presented in figure 1 of the report, the average compliance level for the reporting period was approximately 94%, with December having the lowest percentage results, which was affected by some of the submissions which were not included for this report due to them being received after the cutoff date. And represented in figure 2, for below bulk facilities that were due to report on their monthly utilization, the average compliance level for the reporting period was approximately 74%. This is due to licensees that ceased complying once they submitted their consent forms for revocation of their licenses via the High Court process. Despite NESA subsequently informing these licensees in writing to continue complying with the regulatory requirements and holding a compliance workshop, compliance to submit reports did not improve significantly. And moving on to the allocation mechanisms and third-party access section, in summary, 79%, which is 48 of 61, of the petroleum storage licensees have lodged their allocation mechanisms with the energy regulator, while 13 still had to submit as at 31 December 2021, as reflected in figure 3 of the report. It is worth noting that of the 13 outstanding allocation mechanisms, 11 are for licensees that fall below the bulk threshold determination. And under the HDSA participation section, the analysis done for this submission covers the reporting period between 1 July 2021 to 31 December 2021, which covers the Q2 and Q3 of the 2021-2022 financial period. The list of licensees whose reports were due during these 2 quarters is shown on Table 1 of the report, and 90% of licenses were compliant. Table 2 is showing the outstanding reports, and Table 3 showing a detailed analysis of the HDSA reports received. For the site visit section, with regard to the compliance for site inspections, all 34 planned visits were for the 2021-2022 period were completed. There were 19 extra site visit inspections conducted, which included sites where the team needed to verify assets on the facilities prior to licensing, and others were as a result of following up on incidents reported. Overall, where non-compliance was noted, licensees were guided towards the corrective action to take, and where necessary, the team held further engagements with licensees via the team's platform to conclude on the findings. Furthermore, written findings for all site inspections is attached to this report as Annexure A1 and with Annexure A2 containing the overall site visit schedule for the year. In conclusion, members and colleagues, the compliance level in this reporting period improved following a concrete effort to remind and follow up. I would like to apologize for the errors made in paragraph numbering on page 14, which reads as paragraph 3 instead of 20, and subparagraphs 3.1 to 3.10 instead of 20.1 to 20.10. It is therefore recommended that the PPS notes this biannual report on the level of compliance by licensees with the conditions of their operation licenses issued for the financial year 2021-2022 as at 31 December 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Maputa will then get comments and questions as well as guidance from members, if any. If not, by show of hands, members that you are happy to note. I think we've skipped 7 and we dealt with operation, which is 8. Mr. Sibanda?
Sorry, Chairperson, I think I'm a bit lost. Sorry, I think I was looking at 7. My apologies.
Okay. Are we happy to note? If you can just show by show of hands, members, if you're happy to note. Thank you, Mr. Komete. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. I'm also happy to note. So the biannual report of the monitoring and enforcement of compliance with the operation license conditions hereby noted. We'll then go to item 7, which is the monitoring and enforcement of compliance with construction license conditions.
Chairperson, I'm not sure if it's on my side, but on our link, the agenda and the link, item 8 is the construction, which is Mr. Dumelo's submission, and he will help with the presentation. So I'm not sure the 7 and 8 on your side, how did it happen? But from our side, the agenda and the link in terms of how the document has been uploaded, number 8 is the construction. But let's allow Mr. Lukele to take us through the construction part. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. This is a second biannual report submitted to the PPS for noting. This report provides updates on the construction projects licensed by NERSA, as well as new license applications and changes to existing licenses or conditions. There are 4 key changes to license projects since the last report. that was noted by the PPS in September last year. And these are summarized in paragraph 8 of the report, which is on page 14 of the pack. This relates to, one, the issuing of a license by NERSA to Lanele for the construction of a storage facility in Ambrose Park. And the second one is the approval of the amendment of the OTMS license conditions, allowing OTMS to construct an additional pipeline in Saldanha Bay for transporting crude oil to the Astron Energy Refinery in Cape Town. And the third change is the completion of construction by Astron Energy of base oil loading facilities in Island View. And the last one, Chair, is the revocation of a construction license issued to OTGC. With respect to the project that are yet to be concluded, we currently have a total of 14 projects that we term to be active projects. 6 of these are in progress, while 8 are in pre-construction stage or are on hold. The details of the project in the pre-construction stage or on hold are contained in Table 2B and Table 2C, starting on page 6 of the pack. And Chair, there has been an ongoing trend of requests for extensions of construction timelines from licensees. And since the last report to the PPS, NERSA received 4 amendment applications by licensees requesting extension of construction timelines as detailed in Table 1A and Table 1B, starting on page 8 of the pack. And Chairperson, the last part I wish to talk to is the non-compliance. During the reporting period, there were 6 licenses that were non-compliant, and the non-compliance was with respect to meeting the construction timelines. And then, but however, currently there's only 1 licensee that has not sought to remedy the non-compliance, and the necessary process is being followed to enforce compliance by the said licensees. But on the positive side is that all licensees are complying with the provision of information to NERSA in the form of construction progress reports. With that, Chairperson, the recommendation is for the PPS to note the report. Thank you.
Thank you. I note the presentation. Also, Madam Chair, I think is the heading on the agenda, but the documents are swapped around. The 8 is actually talks to operation on the agenda, but it's actually construction, and then 7 talks to construction, but it's actually operation. So with that, may we then proceed to members in terms of your comments, inputs, and questions on the presentation made by Mr. Lukele for guidance, if any. Otherwise, by show of hands, if you are happy to note. Thank you, Madam Maseti, Mr. Kumete, Mr. Sbanda. I'm also happy to note. Thank you. This then concludes item 8. The item 9, we had a challenge in terms of the infrastructure utilization and third-party access to the petroleum storage facilities. We just must ensure that there is early circulation to all the members so that they can be able to familiarize themselves with the document area. Mr. Madam Maseti, any comments?
Yes, Chairperson, I just wanted to understand the extent to which the team, even the committee, will be affected in terms of not considering this matter in terms of its APP targets. Just a brief one, Chairperson, if they will be affected. Otherwise, if it will also make it to the special meeting, I'm fine with that. Thanks, Chair. You're on mute,
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chua. May just respond quickly.
Yes, Chair, just to confirm that if it's discussed on the 23rd of March, we are still fine. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Right, we leave it then. And therefore, this concludes the meeting of today in terms of our open meeting before, but we'll still have to proceed in a closed session. So I'd just like to thank everyone who has been following us through the social media platforms in terms of our live streaming of this meeting. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day further.